Hello there. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. I'm Ryan in Singapore. Welcome to our mindfulness practice. Yeah, it's nice to be back. Kind of this welcome back to this familiar place. And, this is the topic of beginning again. So as we get into today's topic, um, what I always like to do with my topics is to try to teach on something that is present for me, because I feel that there's a lot more. It becomes a lot more authentic when I'm trying to teach from my own experience and what I'm experiencing at any point in time. And beginning again is where I am right now. And that's where that's my place on coming back to not only Insight Timer but a lot of other things. I've been on holiday for a little over 2 months with the kids out of school, and they're finally back in school, and I can get back into my routine. And so that's what I wanted to chat about today. What's that experience been like? And I think most of us can relate to this idea of beginning again, that we've been doing something, and we've been doing something, let's say specifically something that's beneficial to us, and then we have a break or a pause. And sometimes that pause is intentional, and sometimes that pause isn't so intentional. And I kind of want to walk through both of these scenarios a bit today, and what may tend to happen I think in not only in the unintentional but also in the intentional. There can be there can be a lot of self-judgment around what's going on, and I think that's a really good topic to explore. And as I was scheduling this event, as I was writing my teaching notes, something that I noticed that first came up is that I have a relatively stable format that I use for these live events. So, right, it's like I spend the first 5 minutes kind of saying hi, doing some unstructured intro, is kind of chit-chatting about stuff. Then I have 15 minutes of teaching, and then 20 minutes of meditation, and then a 5-minute wrap-up, right? This is my typical structure. And I just found, as I'm writing the notes, I'm like, what are those? Like, how long do I usually teach in these sessions? So it was it was really coming back, and coming back to something that I just assumed was so familiar that I would remember it so well, and then realizing that, in fact, there's more that I've lost being gone than I realized. And I think that's something as well to explore. Like, for me, I just don't have much choice but to take this time off because of just kind of my role in my family. This is what happens when I have, these a couple preteen kids, as well as my almost 4-year-old now. So just to have that time to, and this is part of it too. This is part of my life, right? And this is an important part of my life, being with my family. And that's why I think it's important not to be judging ourselves for getting out of our routines, because often there's a really good reason for getting out of our routines, even if it isn't immediately apparent. And I think that's an important thing to highlight, because that can help get us out of the self-judgmental thoughts that may come along with breaking routine. So today's topic is beginning again. So we do have time where we'll come away from our regular routines, and for me that was coming away from teaching and my own regular meditation practice. My meditation practice was quite different on holiday and on these times of shifted routine than it is when I'm here, and when I've got some way to keep myself anchored every single day. So those holidays disrupted routines, But something else I just want to say, at least in my situation, is that some of that was intentional. My routine includes meditation, yoga, swimming, exercise, really watching closely what I eat, uh, hydrating well, sleeping well, make sure that I'm taking care of myself. And all of that and doing it constantly starts to feel like a list of chores that I've got to do it, right? And that list of chores, because of it being like chores, makes it harder to do and makes me get closer to burnout, and it makes it so that I'm not going to be able to maintain myself. And I recognize that about myself. Like, if I keep going, eventually this system breaks down to the point that I'm so disgusted with it that I'm not going to be able to get back on. So I stopped for a while. And now I'm coming back. Now I'm getting back into my regular routine. So the main question that I want to pose today is, what happens when something that matters to us falls away and we decide to begin again? And that could be meditation, could be exercise, could be eating differently, it could be journaling. Maybe it's the way that we're engaging with a particular relationship. It could be creative work that we're doing. It's anything at all that we once intended to make part of our lives. So, to be clear, beginning again is not an unusual interruption in the path. It is part of the path. Beginning again is part of our path. So let me say that one more time. Beginning again is not an unusual interruption in the path. Instead, beginning again is part of the path. And embracing it that way makes it easier to do. It makes it look less like failure, like we're having difficulty doing it again because of the way that feels, right? The way it feels to try to re-engage with that thing that we stopped doing. So what happened? What happened to those intentions we once had? So just kind of journey with me back in your mind to the beginning of the year. Maybe you made some New Year's resolutions. Maybe you had some intention of something that you were planning to do for this year. Maybe there was just a sense of how this year wanted to go. And, I've said in the past that, like, the beginning of the year isn't necessarily a special thing. It's our calendar that, that we humans have made. But we do tend to, when that number changes from 2025 to 2026, to say, well, hey, this year I have some new intention for myself. So, it's August, right? This is the 8th month of the year. What happened? What happened to those intentions? So just take a moment to, I invite you to think back. What was that intention? What did I want for myself? What did I hope would be different? What have I actually continued? What has quietly disappeared into the background? And so this isn't an audit. This isn't this isn't a time to judge ourselves. This is a way to look factually as to what it is that was going on, what it is that we intended, and where we are now, right? And this is at the heart of our mindfulness practice, to look at things factually without judging. To look, this is where I am, right? This is a part of acceptance. So we're not here to see whether we succeeded or failed at those intentions or goals. The real question, what we're doing here is, I want you to ask yourself this question: does this intention that I had still matter to me? And there are two perfectly legitimate answers. One is no. Maybe circumstances changed. Things are different. Things are vastly different now than they used to be, which is, I know, is the situation for some of us here. Maybe I learned something. Maybe it wasn't really important to me after all. And now that I look back, it's funny to see the me that's here that feels like my ideas, my interests, my desires are all permanent, that like whatever this is, it's going to be like this forever. I'm going to always love this thing, and I'm always going to want to be committed to this thing, right? We look now at the version of me and go, wait a minute, that wasn't important. That wasn't nearly as important to me as I thought it was. So maybe letting it go is healthier than dragging around an unfinished obligation. So can we let it go? So that's, potential answer number 1. No, it's not important anymore. Answer number 2, yes, it is. This still matters. I've simply drifted away from it. So if that's the case, this is the opportunity to return. And something, especially as we go through this factual examination exercise, just let yourself notice how quickly returning can become judgment. When we realize we've stopped doing something, the mind often wants to add a story. I was doing so well. Why did I stop? I've lost all my progress. I should be further along. I never stick with anything. Here we go again. So now we're dealing with 2 things. 1, the fact that I haven't been doing this, right? That is the fact. And then number 2, all the things that my mind has to say about what that means about me, who I am because of not doing that thing that used to be important to me, that I've determined, wait a minute, that still is important to me. So that second piece actually makes beginning again even harder. And we can be so concerned about where we think we should be that we don't begin from where we actually are. And I smile as well because I know that pattern so well in myself. I remember where I was. I remember my fitness level. I remember the number on the scale. I remember how much easier it was to meditate than it is now. We don't have to get back to where we were. We begin from where we are, because it's the only place that we can begin. So coming back sometimes feels different. And I'll just give you an example from something that happened to me the other night. I woke up in the middle of the night and I couldn't immediately fall back asleep. So I tried. I'm like, hey, I remember this. I tried following the breath. I even tried counting my breaths. But what I experienced was that my attention wandered much more than I expected. And there was this sense of, wow, this is so much harder than it used to be. So the easy way to look at this is, I've lost my ability to meditate, right? That's what might immediately show up, is this judgment of self. Like I can't do this, and I'm angry and frustrated at myself as to where I am. But if I look closely at what was actually happening in those moments, I noticed a pattern. I'm following my breath. My mind is wandering. I'm noticing that my mind has wandered. I'm returning, coming back to the breath. Then my mind wanders again. Then I notice, and then I return. And gosh, that pattern sounds familiar, doesn't it? That isn't a failed meditation. That's the exact definition of what meditation is. So that's not a failed meditation, that's meditation. And just because it isn't the same as what was happening previously doesn't mean that it's a failure, right? In fact, just the opposite. As I look at that pattern, I recognize it and I go, wait a minute, that's exactly what I'm supposed to be doing. And the nice thing about this particular situation was eventually I did fall asleep. So maybe my concentration isn't as stable as it was after being away for a while. That's okay. I don't need today's practice to feel like the practice I remember 2 months ago. And so this is a kind of a good segue to start to transition into meditation, because the meditation itself is what teaches us how to begin again, because it is. Meditation is that microcosm of the rest of our lives. So we can use our meditation practice as, that's why we say practice, because it is practice for everything else we do in life. So meditation becomes this model for something so much larger. We place attention on the breath. The mind wanders. What do? We begin again. 10 seconds later, the mind wanders again. Begin again. Maybe we're lost for 5 minutes. Maybe we're way off in who knows where. The moment we realize we're lost, we begin again. We don't say, I ruined the meditation. I need to make up those 5 minutes. I'll restart tomorrow. Today's not the right day for meditation. But clearly I'm not cut out for this. This meditation isn't for me. Well, we don't say any of those things. We simply return. And perhaps we can bring that same quality into our daily lives. The practice isn't never wandering. The practice is learning how to return. And that applies far beyond meditation. We lose our routines, we lose our motivation, life changes, we get injured, we travel, we get busy, we get sick, we get bored, or sometimes we deliberately stop. Then at some point, awareness returns. Oh, this mattered to me. Right there is that possibility of beginning again. And so as we do it, the one of the traps is that we make it too big. We make returning to be like we got to do everything all at once. That you just can't get back into it because you set such a high expectation of yourself, because you're looking back into the past at the previous version of me and trying to hold yourself to standards of previous me instead of looking at who's here right now. And so we decide to return immediately, and we construct the whole future. Every morning from now on, I'm going to meditate for 30 minutes, right? I'm going to do 5 workouts a week. I'm never missing another meditation. My diet stinks. I got to completely reboot my entire diet, right? This time I'm going to do it properly. And suddenly beginning again becomes this enormous thing. But we don't need to solve the rest of the year today. It's just the next step. There's just this breath. So maybe that's a better attitude. Instead of, can I keep this going forever? We ask ourselves, am I willing to begin again today? Okay, we're going to transition into meditation. So get comfortable. And wow, what does this feel like? Has it been a while that you've sat in a meditation posture? So find your posture. Find the posture that's going to help you today, that's going to support you in your practice. My encouragement, as always, is as best you can, sitting up straight and tall, bringing your back away from the backrest. One way that you can help out your back so that you don't get too tired is to have your knees slightly lower than your hips. So I'm sitting on a meditation cushion that elevates my hips slightly higher than my knees. See if you can bring your head straight, crown of the head towards the ceiling, noticing the curvature in the neck and the lumbar spine. Arms hanging gently by the sides of the body. Hands could be in the lap, on the knees, anywhere that's comfortable. Can be folded one on top of the other, whatever's conducive to your meditation practice. And as you get into your posture, maybe making any movements, rolling the shoulders, moving the head around, something that's going to aid you in your comfort, and then settling in. Settling into stillness. As stillness can aid us in watching what's happening in the mind. Can you feel into this posture? Notice what it feels like to be sitting here. The muscles in the face, are they tense? Just being aware, seeing if through awareness, any tension in the body can relax. So as you scan through your body, if you find any tension, first of all, welcome it. It's here. It doesn't need to change or go away to make this a great meditation. Sometimes noticing that tension can help let it go, can help let it relax. So maybe that happens. Maybe it doesn't. Feeling into the rest of the posture, the neck, the shoulders, the back, the belly, the chest. A feeling of the body resting on the cushion. Maybe you can feel the pressure between your buttocks and the thing that you're sitting on. Maybe memorizing what this feels like. Just kind of putting a bookmark in where you are right now. So this posture, this way of being, how are you right now? And then once you've done that, I just want to invite you to bring your attention to the feeling of breathing. And there are lots of ways to examine the feeling of breathing. So you know that you're breathing. How do you know that you're breathing? Where do you feel your breath most prominently? And for me, it's this rising and falling of the belly. That's the place where most of the time I find my breath most accessible. Rising as I breathe in, falling back as I breathe out. Inhaling, followed by exhaling, followed by inhaling, followed by exhaling, followed by inhaling, followed by exhaling. So riding the waves of the breath. And inevitably, our mind will get caught by something. Could be a sound in the room. Could be a thought. Something pulls us away of the awareness of breathing. We may be gone for a few seconds before we recognize. We may be gone a few minutes before we realize. But this is our moment to notice it, to be aware of that truth that we've wandered away, and then gently guiding the mind back to observing the physical sensation of breath and beginning again. If the mind has commentary, this is hard. I can't do this. This is so challenging. I keep wandering away. I'm so tired. Notice those thoughts. These thoughts are also part of the practice. Notice the posture. Just remember back to that bookmark that we set earlier. Is the posture the same? Have we deteriorated at all? Sometimes that can change the way the meditation feels. See if you can bring yourself back into that posture. Begin again from that posture. Determined, dignified, here, ready to practice formally, following the breath, wherever it's most apparent to you. It doesn't have to be at the belly. It could be at the nostrils, it can be at the chest, it can be the feeling of the whole body breathing, whatever feels most like home for you, the easiest for you to follow. So we have just under 4 minutes to go. I'll leave you in silence and we'll close our practice with a few rings of the bell. Well done on making it through today's practice. I'm going to go ahead and close with 3 rings of the bell. Thank you for practicing with me. And well done on doing this So how did your practice today go? Was it a good meditation? Was it a bad meditation? Feel free to share in the chat. I'm going to look at the chat shortly, but first I just kind of want to recap, right? As we begin again, step one is looking at those things that we want to begin again. Does it make sense now? Does the version of me align with those things? And then the things that I do align with, sometimes I'm judgmental towards myself, so noticing that judgment. And then as we begin again, not biting off more than we can chew, recognizing that we are in a different place. I'm a different version of me now than I was. And so that can help to give me the power to get back into the things that I know matter to me. So let's close practice the way we do, with some well wishes to ourselves and well wishes to everybody else in the world. So follow along if you like. May I be happy and peaceful. May everyone watching, listening, wherever you are, I wish you all happiness and peace. And may all sentient life, all living things on this planet, in this universe, may we all be happy and peaceful. Thanks so much. See you again soon. Bye-bye.